All right, it looks like I'm live. Hopefully everything is set up properly. I'm using a different camera, so we'll see if this works out. I got an adjustment on the zoom here. Come in a little bit on that. And hopefully, as I pound, the camera doesn't jump. So I worked on the joiner plane a few hours over the weekend. Let me show you what I accomplished. Major accomplishment was the bed. So what I did was I used the blade and I put pencil on the back of the blade, and then I found all the high spots on the bed. And over the process of about an hour and a half, I took out all the high spots. And what I discovered, which I had seen many times in other planes that I built, was the high spots are typically right underneath the abutments, because as you're using the floats, it's real easy to hit the middle. In fact, you'll probably hit the middle about twice as much as you'll hit the sides. And then what happens is the sides are a little bit higher. So that's where I had to pay extra attention to drop the sides down so that the whole thing would stay flat. And then the idea is that you're using the blade to check the flatness and make sure that there's no rock. So right now, this is pretty darn flat. And it's right at the angle I want. It matches the lines on the top. It matches where I want it to be on the bottom. So I'm real happy with that. The same thing, the same process is done with the abutments. So again, pencil graphite on the back of the blade. And then what I do is I align the abutments. As you can see, this is a pretty tight all the way through here. Let me see if I got my my bamboo stick. This right here is real tight. Same thing on the other side. So again, this is a flat plane. So what you want is you want to use that to judge that the flatness and the straightness of the abutments. And they were already pretty darn close, but I dialed it in really, really nicely. And that paid off, because when I took my stock for my wedge, and what I do with this is I rough this out at 10 degrees on my compound miter box. I have a special jig that I use to make this cut. And in a couple of strokes with the plane, I was able to fit this right in. So I had a good alignment before I did any work with the angle that I laid out and produced for the abutment, and the angle, which was 10 degrees, that I took off the compound miter box. So I'm very happy with all that. I have the eyes laid out up here. I'm not going to do that on camera because I'll be right in front of everything. I think it's a little too tedious and too time consuming to do on camera. The other thing I was able to do, let me show you how I laid out the abutments. In the past, I used the blade and I used tape, and I laid out the abutment on the tape, and then I used the blade to judge how much to trim on the abutment. So what I did this time was I took two pieces of scrap steel. These add up to 5/16, and then I just placed them underneath the abutment, and I trimmed it right to the side of the steel. So I have a very nice straight line, and looks really good, and of course it's functional. And then the same two pieces of steel that I used to lay out the abutment, I use to lay out the tips of the wedge. So that's how I did that. Now at the bottom of the abutments, they turn. Let's see if I could show you that. So that would be, let's see. That would be that area right there. Nope. That area right there is where the abutment comes. So it comes down 1/4 of an inch, and then it turns and it tapers to 0. And that's the same taper that's on the tip of the wedge. The idea is that there's always a portion of the abutment above the wedge right to the tip of the blade where it becomes 0, and it becomes 0. The points of the wedge become 0 right at the mouth of the plane. So from this side, you can see the abutment ends right at the mouth. There's the you can see the taper back in there, and that's where it comes right to 0. So now that's my air conditioning. Let me shut that off. So that's the geometry for that. Now the idea, when you're coming through the bottom of the plane, you don't want to chop into those abutments. Okay, so even though it's very small and it turns into a point, what you're going to find is that if you're too aggressive coming in this way, you're actually going to destroy part of that you don't realize is right underneath you. So you want to keep that in mind when you lay it out. So if you noticed, I had a double set of lines. So what I did was I chopped all the way through straight, left the abutment wide, and then all I did was take one of the floats and taper it right at the end. And that's the most reliable and safest way to do it. So constantly checking also with the square to make sure that this is square. And then the other thing is, up in here, what I do is I put the square across the top of the plane, and then you can almost see it right there. I just sight right across the edge of the plane and sight that edge back through here, just so that it looks square. And then what I also did was I took a flat piece of steel and I checked this for flatness. So this is real nice. So the idea with the floats is to get these corners real crisp and get this cheek right here. This is flat. So what happens is, even though back here it's an extra 1/4 of an inch away from the body of the plane, it comes in closer, so it tapers out this way, but the entire face is flat. It's not curved. So it's a straight plane, even though it's tilted. And so the idea again is to use a piece of steel or just your eye. It's a small area, but keep that flat. Keep the rock out of it, and then that's gonna enable you to keep these corners really, really tight, like this right in here. I got to do all this backwards, like this right in here. So then further along, what I do, which I'm not going to show on camera, is I make sanding sticks. So this is 100 grit with the paper backing glued to a stick. And then what I do is I use this to sand the interior of the plane. And that helps keep all the lines flat and keep all the corners straight. And so what you see right here is the tooling from the floats. So the idea is, if you have a really good float and forgiving wood, which this was, thankfully, you're able to produce a finish that you can complete with light sanding. So what I want to do now is do the final shaping of the wedge. We'll get that going. And let's see, we'll do this right up in here like that. probably just do this with a coping saw. It's not really a heavy cut. So what I did to lay out the tip was I put the wedge in under the abutments, above the blade and underneath the abutments, and then I just drew a line right where the taper ends or begins, depending on how you look at it, in the abutment. And I drew a line, and then I squared across, and then I just connected the point of the wedge to that point. And it's more or less going to be where I want it to be inside the plane. I could also drive the wedge in, and then I can trim the side of this tip and the abutment at the same time with a really small float. But it's really not that critical. And as long as the blade doesn't chatter, it's really not going to affect the way the plane looks or the way the plane performs. All right, so now from here up is going to be that little curved ramp where it tapers into the flat part of the wedge. So this is a really shallow cut. You got to be careful right here. So when I make these wedges and I rough them out, I like them on a long block because it's safer to cut on the compound miter box and easier to set up on the table with the clamping and everything. And then I cut it to size right at the last minute. So I'll dress the end of this up. Oh, nice to see you. Good morning. That's a very nice compliment. Thank you. So let's see how this wedge fits in the plane. Get this out of the way. So it sounds really good. And it fits really tight up against the abutments. I don't know if you could see that. Really, really tight. So it's got a lot of holding power, which is what you want. Now the tip is off a little bit. So what I can do is reduce them slightly. And then I could also reach in there and reshape the abutments. So I will do that at a later time. That's going to be a little time consuming and a little tedious. So the next thing I want to show everybody is I'm going to mortise the tote. So what I do when I lay the tote out is I hold it up to the elevation that I need, which is basically the bottom of the handle here is flush with the top of the plane. You can't lay it out like that. You have to lay it out like this. Right? It's got to be not up here, but down here, and then locate it side to side so that there's space for the blade to go in and be tapped with the hammer without colliding with the front of the tote. And so I determined that the back of the tote is right here, and then I laid it out, and there'll be plenty of room to hit the blade with a hammer, and that'll be that. So let me take this out. And I'll get set up. Let's see. Do it this way. Okay, so got a layout right here. I'm going to bore some holes. Oops, that's not good. This is maple. Took it from a tree came from a tree about 6 blocks from where I live, not too far. It's been drying at least 3 years. I think it might have been November of 2018 when I took it, right around Thanksgiving. Let's take out the corners a little bit. All right, Rishi, that's good news. Keep watching them because I'm going to keep making them. What kind of work do you do? Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could make regular videos. You mean like every Friday? Like a bunch of people? Yeah, I wish I could do that. No, I can't. I got my hands full. I do other things besides have a YouTube channel. But I wish I could. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we got here. So, first thing I could do. That's pretty straight. welcome. I'll see what I can do. Go ahead. What do you have? well, I do what I can. We all do what we can. It's great. What kind of work do you do? So right here, I'm just taking the corners off this tote where it goes into this mortise, just so I don't have binding. Okay, now the other thing I've done in the past, which I think I'm going to do here, is I've been able to hit this with a float. I don't think I'm going to do that though. I think I'm just going to do it with this. Let's see how this looks. These are floats. These are Plane Makers floats. It's not a file. I have a video that shows how I make them. That's how all the work up in here is done, all with floats. But I use them for everything. I use them for carving, mortise and tenon work, joinery. I did a big job with fiberglass. I used them for fiberglass. No, sorry, they're not for sale. I'll teach you how to make them. You got the videos. You got to just do it yourself. That's what this is all about. I know it's a big challenge. You got to take the first step. That's what I did. But thank you for asking. It's a big compliment. Okay, so first thing I want to do So always got to be right at the limit of the clamp. Right at the limit. Hmm. I think that's it. I think that's all the force I could put on it. Without making a big mess. All right. That'll be fine. Okay, that's about all I can do now. And the rest of it will come at some other time. I'll probably finish it up with one more video that won't be a live stream. And I'll demonstrate it. So I got some routing I got to do along the top. Finish up the wedge a little bit, sand all the rough spots out of the tote, cut the body of the plane to length. There's a little bit of work to do, but I'll get that done in the next couple of days, film a segment, and then we'll wrap this one up. All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging with me. This was a short one, but it was sweet. And I thank you for watching, liking, subscribing. Watch all my other videos. And like I always say, you got to stay strong. There's a heck of a lot of work to do, and we're getting it done. Thank you very much.